Um, okay, Alicia will read for us a passage from Luke chapter 15, verses 11 through 32. And I want to make a few comments on this.
11 to 32.
Keep in mind before she begins to read, as you find it in your Bible, Luke chapter 15 is a wonderful chapter in which Jesus tells 3 stories. And the focus of telling these stories is to emphasize how God cares for the sinner that comes home. And so one of his first story was about the lost sheep. The shepherd who has 100 sheep, and one of them goes astray. But the shepherd, because of his commitment to his sheep, would leave the 99 and go looking for the one that is lost. And how when he finds this one, he rejoices. He calls his neighbors and he said, you know, my lost sheep is found. It's time for us to rejoice. He's painting the picture that God rejoices when the lost comes home. The second story in this chapter is with the lost coin. A woman who has 10 silver coins and loses one. And once she goes looking for it, and then she finds it, and she calls her neighbors and friends and say, come celebrate with me, I found my lost silver coin. So first Jesus gives to us an agricultural story, then he gives to us a financial story, and the story we'll be looking at is one that is related to the family. It is a family. It is showing God as Father. But while the story is designed to teach about the sinner coming home, I want us to look at this story this morning from the standpoint of family life, because this is a real story Jesus is telling. And Alicia is going to read that for us. Then I'm going to make a few comments on it. That's Luke chapter 15 from verse 11 to 32. Alicia, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay. And he said, a certain man had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falleth to me. And he divided unto them his living. And not many days after, the younger son gathered all together and took his journey into a far country, and there wasted his substance with riotous living. And when he had spent all, there arose a mighty famine in that land, and he had begun to be in want. And he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country. And he sent him into the fields to feed swine. And he would fain have filled his belly with the husk that the swine did eat. And no man gave unto him. And when he came to himself, he said, how many hired servants of my father's have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before thee, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. Make me as one of thy hired servants. And he rose and came to his father. But when he was yet a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in thy sight, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. But the father said to his servants, bring forth the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet. And bring hither the fatted calf, and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead, and is alive again. He was lost, and is found. And they began to be merry. Now his eldest son was in the field, and as he came and drew nigh to the house, he heard music and dancing. And he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said unto him, thy brother is come, and thy father hath killed the fatted calf, because he had received him safe and sound. And he was angry and would not go in. Therefore came his father out and entreated him. And he answering said to his father, Lo, these many years do I serve thee, neither transgress I at any time thy commandments. And yet thou never gavest me a kid, that I might make merry with my friends. But as soon as this thy son was come, which have devoured thy living with harlots, thou hast killed for him the fatted calf. And he said unto him, Son, thou art ever with me, and all that I have is thine. It was meet that we should make merry and be glad, for this thy brother was dead and is alive again, and was lost and is found.
Wow. Remember, I said this story or parable illustrates God's care for the lost, but it's also family story. So let me draw some truths from this passage as it relates to family life and the roles of dads, fathers in their family. And God is the ideal father here. He's the classic example of what fathering is like. We get our model from him. Now, while we're talking about fathering, I realize there are women with us this morning, mothers with us. So mothers who also father. And so I want you to see what applies to you as your parent. As we talk about fathers, we are talking about father-in-law, we are talking about grandfather, we are talking about biological dads. We are talking about stepfather, or we're talking about surrogate fathers. Someone in whose life you're playing the role of fathering. Now, the first thing I draw from this passage is that is the management piece of it. As fathers, we are managers. We are managers. We manage our homes. The father in this passage has two sons, a younger and an older, and he's managing them. He also manages his wealth, how he gets it and how he distributes it. So the younger son says to his father, you have an inheritance that, and I'm part of I'll be getting some of that stuff. I want you to give that to me. So keep in mind, first of all, as fathers, we are managers. And we have to ask ourselves the question, how do I manage if I'm a manager? How do I do that? According to 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 3, as we manage, we have to learn to lead by example. And some of you stated that about your dad already. The example he has been. So we lead by example, not just lording it over our children, but leading by example. We lead also by the way we provide for them. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 22 says, a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. So we lead by example, we live by example. And second, as we manage, we make sure we model a godly life that encourages our children into a relationship with Christ. And Deuteronomy develops that passage, how we make God the number one in our lives, in our choices and our pursuits. So the first thing I gleaned from this passage in Luke chapter 15 is the management piece of it as that. Okay, we manage our children, we manage our wealth, we manage the distribution of those wealth. We manage how we live in their presence as an example. The second thing I gleaned from this passage is how we deal with the adventurous child. The younger son goes to his dad and he says, you know what, you have some stuff for me and I need that stuff. How do we deal with the adventurous child and the outcome of their decisions? As your father and as your parent, you might have two types of children who are in your homes, or your past experience may have shown you this. You have the child who wants to stay at home. It just wants to hang out at home. And you also have the child who, by the time he's 6, he's thinking, when can I leave? I'm ready to leave home. So we have to deal with these two dynamics. The child who wants to leave home and the child who wants to stay home. In the story, the younger son says to his father, you know what? I want you to make this decision. I'm ready to leave home. And I'm heading out. Dad decides that he's going to give him his share of the estate he has for him. And it's amazing, as he leaves home, he takes all that he gets and he squanders it in wild living. The child who is ready to leave home is going to make a decision to leave. And as a matter of fact, as soon in our culture, as soon as he hits 18, he's saying, I got to leave. That shows itself in a number of ways, but he's ready to leave. And we are going to trust God that as he leaves, he lives in a way that honors his family, and it lives in a way that honors God. But this young man leaves and he squanders his life. He spends all that he had. One day he went to make a purchase. He soon discovered that there is nothing in his bank account. He wrote a check and he discovered that he's trying to maybe withdraw, maybe get a loan, and he soon finds out that he doesn't have any credit. And he's stranded, literally stranded. So he goes, and as he is in this far country, based on the passage, there's a famine in the land also, and he has to make a decision. For a Jewish boy, he goes to the lowest stage a Jewish boy can get, where he has to take care of pigs and desire what the pigs have, eat, and he himself couldn't eat that. So he wants to leave home, but he doesn't know how to manage his life properly. And as dads and as parents, that's one of the dynamics we have to deal with. Good for this son, though, he came to his senses and he made another decision. You know what? I think I need to go back home. And in our society these days, some of you are dealing with that as parents. A child who leaves home, makes some mistakes, and he's thinking of returning home. You have a decision to make, because that child is still your child, and you have to know how you work through that effectively. In some cultures, by the time they're 18, we throw them out of the house and we say, you're gone, you're on your own. In some cultures, no, we hang on to them and we care for them consistently. You have to know what you want to do as a dad or as a mom as you care for your children. So the first thing in this passage I drew management. The second thing is dealing with the adventurous child who wants to leave home. The third thing in this passage is how the father shows compassion. And fathers, this is something we are all called upon. We, at some time or the other, are going to hurt our children. At some time or the other, our children are going to hurt us. How compassionate are we? We have to exhibit that. As a matter of fact, the young son returning home to his father in this passage plans what he wants to say to his dad. He says, when I head back home, I'm going to say, Dad, I totally messed up. I'm not even worthy to be called your son. I just want to be one of your paid servants. Interesting in this passage, Dad was waiting consistently for his son to come back home. And one day Dad was under the veranda and he sees son coming home at a far distance. What does Dad do? Dad is compassionate. How does Dad show compassion in this? He runs towards his son. He hugs him. He kisses him. And before son says what he wants to say, and Dad doesn't even listen to that, Dad says to his servants, you know, son is home. This is what I want you to do, servants. Go get him a shower. Give him a brand new robe. Put a ring on his finger. Put new shoes on his feet. Go kill the fattened calf. Compassion. 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 As dads, we are called upon to exhibit compassion for our children. Will they mess up? Yes, they will. Will we mess up? Yes, we will. Be compassionate. So showing compassion, the first thing is management piece. The second thing is dealing with the adventurous child who wants to leave home. The third thing is showing compassion. And the fourth thing is dealing with the child who stays at home and gripes. The oldest, he just gripes. Yeah. The oldest son is at home. He is at home. And all his focus is on griping. He gets word, he was in the field, he gets word that he's hearing music, he's hearing celebration. So he heard someone, he's asking, what's going on? And they said, hey, your brother has returned home. And he is mad. He is really, really mad. He wouldn't even go into the house. Why? he has some things against his dad. This is what he says to dad. You know what is happening? I have been here. That rascal left, and I've been here all the time. You never even gave me a kid. You never gave me a little kid to celebrate with my friends. And now this son of yours who left and squandered all his life and all his living, squandered all that you gave to him, he comes home and you kill the fattened calf? And you're out of your mind. You're literally out of your mind. I was here slaving all the time. He's a griper. Dad responds to him, and dad says, son, I want you to be aware that all that I have is yours. Everything that I have is yours. Maybe I didn't communicate that effectively as I should, but all that I have is yours. And so the last thing I draw from this passage is how dad becomes an agent of reconciliation, restoring peace to his family and making peace for his son. My son, all that I have is yours. So as we father, and you have had some of this in your experience, and as we move on, remember, one, we have a management role to play in our families, and we want to grab hold of that and do that by example. Two, we have to deal with the adventurous child who might make rash decisions, and sometimes those decisions hurt him and hurt us, but we have to navigate through that properly. Third, we have to be willing to show compassion for our children's failure and learn how to deal with them and deal with ourselves. Fourth, how do we deal with the child that is griping? He's consistently complaining. And last of all, how do we restore reconciliation and peace to our families? That's that. Thumbs up, Dad. High five. Let's go for it as we father.